My name is Nick Davidson. A long time ago, I was the design director on Magic Arena. Me and a few other people got this project started way back in the day. Worked on it with Ryan through late alpha, early beta, and then I went off to do other things. And I still play a lot of Magic, and I still love Arena. And I was going to come on here and talk about how no, this isn't as balmy a format as everyone's saying. This is a format where, good principled deck building and understanding of the synergies and themes is important. And then I immediately played a match over lunch where my opponent got Krenko out on turn 3 games in a row, and I had to question my own opinions there a little bit.
Well, you bring up a good counterpoint, though, and we're all trying to figure out what's going on here with limited data points, right? This is where I've talked about the African fable about blind men trying to understand an elephant by each feeling the part they're at and describing it to the others and trying to get an understanding of what this beast is in total. And I really feel it's a great analogy for early Magic sets, as we're all some more confidently than others talking about what we're seeing and extrapolating out to what it actually is. And my experience, like, for example, I've only ever played black, usually black-green. I think I've had one black-blue deck and 5 black-green decks. And yesterday, I think we faced 100% black decks, mostly black-green decks. So I have this and a lot of bombs. So I'm in this world where my portion of the elephant is heavily Golgari and heavily grindy and heavily princely. But then Nick had an opinion coming into today that he wanted to share that contradicted that a little bit. Former coworker of ours, Alexis Jansen, the winner of the first Great Designer Search and one of the devs on MTG Arena, is also a very excellent Magic player, very very spiky, and her perspective on Twitter has been even more past Nick. That she's like, I don't understand what people are saying. I build decks with good curves and solid Magic theory, and I've been getting a lot of 5 wins, right? So I still think we are in a place where we don't have all the info yet.
Right.
But I also do think I feel pretty undeniable that just the power level of the rares and mythics is a notch above normal.
So I agree with that, definitely. LSV had an article up on the mothership about first picks, and it's a good article. I recommend people take a look at it. And he said something that I think is absolutely correct, that this set has more, just a higher density of strong first pick rares than your average set by a significant margin. And I think that's true. And when I look at the deck lists that I'm seeing people post, this is kind of a weird way to look at it, but there are more cards, more value, more cards worth of cards in those decks than your average deck.
Mm-hmm.
If you think of a card like, this card is almost always a 2-for-1, and you kind of count that as 2 cards in your deck, total it all up, what is the value of the cards in your deck? I think these decks are just going to be more powerful decks. And the one thing that's a bit of a wild card that we don't know about is, how are the bots impacting that? Are they actually playing fair with the different colors? Are some colors going to have a wider disparity in sort of effective cards per deck because the bots are under and overvaluing them? I got a second pick Ugin. That should never, ever happen.
Yeah, I wonder what's going on with the logic there. I have the hubris to say that if I were still in charge of that, Ugin would not be second picked. I don't know what's that just is not.
I don't know.
Right.
I don't know what you could possibly take over that with it being colorless on top of everything else.
That's the key thing.
It's absurd, but it's colorless. You're definitely going to play it in every deck. It is the definition of a safe windmill slam.
Here's what it feels like happened. Having seen the guts of this system, at least as it was when I left, bots fall into color pairs and then latch onto them, and at that point they are supposed to elevate the relative value of their two colors and artifacts. Just elevate all of those above everything else, and then if something not in those three is powerful enough, it can still be picked. It just has to leap above this bonus that the two on-color colors and the artifact get.
Which makes sense.
But they've introduced preferences, like bots with preferences, and I was not part of that. I had recommended that system be developed, so they went down that path. But I don't know the guts of that system, and it almost feels like there's a mistake in that system that's failing. That when it's giving a preference, it feels like they're saying, okay, we're going to give this bot a black-green preference, and it's only elevating black and green cards, and it's failing to elevate colorless cards.
Oh,
that's what it feels like to me. That's the only reason I can think of that a preference-based bot system would pass an Ugin is the failure to properly elevate colorless cards within those preferences. So that's, if I were there, that's what I would be telling the team. Like, that's what I'd be looking at, and I'm sure they are. There's
a reasonable guess, and I'm sure it's going to get fixed.
Yeah.
But in these early days of bot drafting, it is a bit Wild West.
But so Ugin aside, like, you are getting past. Like yesterday we got a pack 2 pick 2 Bantu, right? Or, something like that. But I described that at the time as like that the bots philosophically draft like pros. They are not as good at it in practice in terms of drafting ultimately a high-powered deck per se, but the philosophy of I'm not in those colors, I am not going to hate draft here.
Right.
The bots are they're locked into that mentality, so to speak.
In this format particularly, there are archetypes that if I were solidly in them, I would maybe kind of probably not switch even for a pack 2 pick 1 Bantu. If I were really jamming on the red-blue spells deck, Bantu does not belong anywhere near that deck.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I already had 2 Spellgorger Weirds and the 1/3 Prophet and a Drake or something, and like that deck was really going for me, and I opened up the draft with a Ral or something ridiculous like that, I would let that Bantu go. So I don't think that's...
It's like, that's not what happens in a shop, right? Like right. It causes people to recoil in shock to see a pick 2 god in packs 2 or 3 or whatever, but that's because it'll never happen in your local shop.
Left,
right?
And the guy on your left shrugs, and then you get on with your life. But with bots, I think we hold them to a higher standard.
Yeah, there's something about we want them to be perfect.
Benjamin asked, how perfect should the bots be, though? Like, should 0.01% of bots pass Ugin pack 1 pick 1 to simulate you drafting with humans who will make mistakes sometimes? I think that's a reasonable stance, and I have no idea where that ended up. I know that even early on, we discussed things like that the bots should have a margin for error, that some small percentage of time, I think it was Alexis that was a fan of that, some small percentage of the time they make a random pick as opposed to a pick according to plan.
Yeah. But I think Benjamin asks a perfect question, and with no pun intended, how perfect should the bots be, though? And the answer is as perfect as they need to be to meet the goals of your system, and that you complete in the minimum amount of time possible. And that's AI and algorithms like this, bot selection logic. These are the honeypot type systems and projects on a game team that if you don't have some adult discipline,
right,
you can all just go down the hole together and put way too much time and effort into a system that is so sweet and so cool and so over designed for what it's actually trying to accomplish, right? And so what we're trying to accomplish with a bot system is what I was when I was designing it was to provide a place for newer drafters to have a clock-free pick system, and then the idea was that expert drafters would be probably in the all-human queue that we don't have yet, right? So the system was initially designed to be load-bearing in a way that it is being asked to bear a larger load than expected now.
Right.
So I think a lot of the flaws in the system are particularly exposed because the alternative is not available. So
right. And there's a design principle at work here that I think is really easy to gloss over, which is that it doesn't matter what your system is doing or why if your players can't tell the difference between that and a bug.
right.
Like if, for example, there is that 0.5% chance that the bot will make a mistake. You can't see me doing the air quotes, can you? Make a mistake and pick randomly instead of the pack one, pick one Ugin. A player is never going to be able to decipher what happened from known information. It is always going to look like a mistake.
Right.
So even if it is serving a designer's goal, it's not serving the goal of a player experience.
Sometimes I say this about writing, and maybe Nick would agree with this, but sometimes you have to lie to tell the truth in fiction. And I just mean if you may be 100% accurate, but if it doesn't feel right to your audience, you've failed. And sometimes you need to twist the truth or the facts of the situation to deliver the correct feeling and the correct emotional response to something, you know? And I think that's why you wouldn't even bother with inserting that level of, well, let's make them mispick Ugin sometimes because people will totally get that. It's like, even if that's accurate, it doesn't deliver the feel you're looking for the audience. So